Hello everyone and welcome back to the podcast. In this episode, I'm going to be reviewing Blackberry, a company which was one of my main convictions a few years ago, and that turned out to be a mistake in which I lost a fair bit of money. But some of the recent developments have me wondering, was this really an error? Was it a bad investment? So let's get deep into it. I declared my Blackberry investment a mistake last year and liquidated the position at an approximately 60% loss. My main motivation to do so was the seemingly mediocre approach of the new CEO, which I believed at the time was likely to perpetuate the political nature of the organization. However, recent developments suggest that declaring Blackberry a mistake early on may evolve to be a mistake in itself. When I first invested in Blackberry, I didn't have a fully conscious understanding of the importance of qualitative organizational properties. However, all my successful investments before and after Blackberry share one trait in common. The companies in question are led by extraordinary leaders that understand that the primary driver of financial outperformance is actually culture. This is the main premise of my Tech Stock Goldmine course, which I actually sat down to create after acknowledging that Blackberry was a mistake, and just making the course is what enabled me to see with clarity what works in investments and what doesn't. Companies with world-class cultures tend to take on a series of qualitative properties that are usually indicative of future financial outperformance. They tend to exhibit flat hierarchies, decentralized operations, and an unusually high tolerance for failure, coupled with an evidently superior pace of product iteration versus that of competitors. Over the long term, this tends to equate to a competitive advantage that ultimately enhances earning power non-linearly. If you read my deep dives on companies like Costco, Amazon, Tesla, and Netflix, which you can find here on my channel for free or on the blog similarly for free, you will see that all world-class companies are in essence the same. The culture of an organization broadly determines its fate, just like personality broadly determines that of an individual. In January 2024, I realized that despite its advantageous position, technologically speaking, Blackberry would not be able to drive shareholder returns due to its politics-first culture, which was fundamentally impeding innovation. However, a year later, the company is back to profitability and positive cash flow production as a result of a newly acquired focus on cost efficiency. Cash from operations came in at a timid $3 million in Q3 fiscal year 2025, so that is their last quarter. But together with the relative strength of the IoT and cybersecurity divisions in the quarter, the achievement is tentatively indicative of good management. Although I am quite happy having reassigned capital from Blackberry to HIMSS, it seems that my initial assessment of the new Blackberry CEO wasn't entirely accurate. Blackberry now appears to be close to selling Cylance, its UEM endpoint solution, and appealingly, the new CEO John Gianmatteo plans to reinvest the resulting capital into accelerating growth on the IoT side. Here's what he said about where Blackberry is now placing its focus during the Q3 fiscal year 2025 earnings call, which to be honest, I quite liked.
We see the QNX side of the house as being really the growth engine for Blackberry. There are opportunities in secure comms, particularly the AppTalk and SecuSmart business, but we don't see this as a huge grower. It's more stable.
My original Blackberry thesis was based on the superiority of Blackberry's real-time operating system known as QNX. I figured that since devices would inevitably come to be connected to the internet, QNX could scale well beyond the current installed base of 255 million cars on the road today to things like industrial, medical, and so forth. In turn, I believe that Blackberry could then use the QNX installed base as a distribution channel for its UEM offering and adjacent software offerings, thus exponentiating revenue per deployed unit of QNX. However, I learned a few lessons from this thesis. One, Blackberry failed to grow its UEM cybersecurity offering at all in the face of competitors with intrinsic distribution advantages, such as CrowdStrike, meaning that whole idea about building out a distribution channel and having your cybersecurity offering on the side kind of waddling alone actually doesn't work. Either you have a winning cybersecurity solution or you don't. Two, the negative effect of a bad corporate culture is exponentiated when a company is focusing on two things at once, as was BlackBerry's case. BlackBerry wasn't quite able to push cybersecurity or IoT. However, the superiority of QNX seems to remain intact now that the new CEO intends to allocate capital to QNX as a primary growth engine. BlackBerry may fulfill its role as an IoT platform going forward. In the Q3 fiscal year 2025 earnings call, Gian Matteo said that they plan to use the capital that results from the yet-to-be-closed Cylance sale to pursue growth opportunities for QNX. Here's what he said about this.
Most likely short-term, I would say, kind of organically, through, as Tim mentioned, we still think there's tremendous growth opportunities in IoT. We're going to make sure that we're placing the right bets to drive and propel that business forward.
Reviewing their Investor Day presentation in October 2024, however, I found that they seem to have no clarity on how to accelerate growth on the IoT side. The presentation by IoT CFO Vito Gialorenzo does not disclose any particular capital allocation initiatives. Therefore, the difference between BlackBerry a year ago and BlackBerry now is simply more focus on IoT with a seemingly capable new CEO. Additionally, and this is great news, the balance sheet has been de-risked with now only $200 million in debt, which is due in 5 years, with $220 million in cash and short-term investments and marginally positive cash flow production. The balance sheet is not looking as terminal as back in Q3 fiscal year 2024 when I gave up on the investment. However, putting BlackBerry and HIMS side by side is the best way to summarize how I was thinking erroneously about BlackBerry a few years ago. In essence, HIMS is a machine that's constantly solving a growing volume of acute customer pains in a way that's increasingly harder to replicate while producing more and more cash. BlackBerry, meanwhile, is absolutely not. BlackBerry has a tech advantage, and if Gian Matteo manages to infuse a world-class culture in the company, they may capitalize on it by making the right investments in QNX. For now, although the progress is encouraging, there are no signs of a sufficiently appealing cultural evolution within the company. Given the way that IoT and cybersecurity divisions are holding up with the recent focus on cost efficiency, however, I am inclined to watch the company quarterly going forward. Further, much like I like to talk about the value of holding on to winners for the long term, I am also a fan of studying mistakes for some time after cutting them. History shows that sometimes they evolve in unexpected ways, which teach us even more lessons than they do when we do recognize them as failures initially. Okay, that's it for today. Thank you very much for joining me. As always, if you enjoyed this, could you please share this with one friend? These deep dives are for free, and so the only way this grows is with your help. Thank you very much. Take care, and until next time.